Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday evening. That means it's time for another edition of Circle Track Chatter presented by Dupuis Media Production. My name is Craig Smolders, joined as always by the legendary Rob Young. Good evening, Rob. How are you tonight?
Oh, hi, Craig. I'm great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm not too bad. I think we have a little bit of a lag here, so I'm not too sure what's going on, but we'll work with it. I mean, it's a blistery night out. It's cold, so who knows what's going to happen if we get disconnected or lose power. I guess we'll shut her down, but we'll do what we can in the meantime. Did you have a good weekend, Rob? How was your weekend?
It was great. It's enjoyed watching what was that, the NFC Championship game and the AFC Championship game yesterday. A little bit of controversy there. I'm not I'm not a big sports fan. Like, I'm not really a hockey fan, or if anything, I do like football. But I was thoroughly enjoyed watching that, mostly because of the refereeing. But that's besides the point.
So who's your pick for the Super Bowl now, Rob?
Well, I mean, you can't bet against Taylor Swift, for crying out loud. Uh, I don't. I guess that would have to be my pick if I was a betting person.
Oh, there you
You
go. I
mean
mean, she
Kansas?
she won it last year, right? I think it was it last
Yeah,
year that
that's
she
right.
won it. So yeah, she can win
The
two in a row. Why
Kansas,
not,
yeah,
right?
Kansas City Chiefs.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about football. We're here to talk about racing. We're actually not going to be talking about dirt racing tonight. We're going to talk about the hard top. We're talking to the Bone Stock driver, driver of the number 23 Bone Stock from Peterborough Speedway. That's Tegan Stanley. We had an opportunity, myself and my wife and Angela and Ryan, we all went down there a couple of years ago to see Tegan, and we had a chance to hang out with him and his family, and they're very wonderful people. And he's a very nice young man. He's very well spoken, and he's a heck of a racer, and he's got his priorities straight with his racing, and a great guy to talk to. So I know you had an opportunity to kind of talk to Tegan there before we came on. What do you think about Tegan, Rob?
Well, he's 19 years old, and um, he's he's again he's not a sports fan. He loves racing. He works in a body shop, so he's got his hands on cars and stuff like that, and likes to paint his own stuff. And his cars look really sharp. Seems like a pretty smart guy, so I'm looking forward to talking to him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's only been racing for a couple of years, but he's got a sixth and a couple of third place finishes over that few years. So yeah, let's get Tegan Stanley on here and let's have a quick chat with him.
How's it going?
Great,
Hey Tegan, how are you tonight?
Not bad. How are you guys?
I'm doing awesome. How's the weather up there? Are you getting all kinds of wind and snow and all kinds of stuff over there?
Yeah, basically getting blown over everything. It's freezing outside. I hate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was just saying before you came on, we're kind of getting the same kind of weather in this area too. So if we lose power or whatever, it'll be unfortunate, but we'll do what we can. And if we lose power and we lose you, we'll get you back on here to finish up this conversation. But I just want to take this opportunity. Welcome to Circle Track Chatter. Thanks a lot for taking some time out of your Monday evening to join us. How is everything going with you? Are you getting ready for the 2025 season, or are you just kind of sitting back and relaxing? What's going on over there, Tegan?
Right now I'm kind of just tinkling into what we're gonna get into. I'm doing my research on where I want to go with what we're trying to achieve next year, and just kind of playing it slowly. Right now, it's freezing outside. I have no ambition to be outside freezing. I'm a crybaby when it comes to the cold, so I will stay inside as long as I can and rush it, like every racer does.
Absolutely. Rob, do you have any opening questions before we get going here?
Well, Tegan and I had a chance to talk earlier, and he doesn't have a heated garage to work in, and so that's why it's not a lot of fun when you have to work like that. But I was there. I remember trying to heat my mom's garage with a barbecue, for crying out loud, and I'd have a pot of coffee on there, and got her as warm as I could. But eventually, you get bored, and you got to get out there, and you got to get this changed around, that changed around, and it takes all winter long. But don't worry about not having heat.
All right. So, Yeah, when we were introducing you, we said you race at Peterborough Speedway. That's your home track. We're not really from that area. We're kind of in the western part of the province here. So for the people that don't know that are tuning in, why don't you kind of tell us what Peterborough Speedway is, how big it is, the layout, and kind of how you get around that track, Tegan?
So it's a 3rd mile oval track. It's got lots of banking. I think it's second for the most banking in our little community of racers. I don't think it has as much banking as Sunset does, but it has a lot more than Flamborough does for sure. I've only ever been to Flamborough and Sunset myself. I'm not sure on the amount of banking we have, but it's enough that you go fast left. And yeah, it's got a funky couple of corners. Every corner is a little bit different. 1 and 2 are the harder corners to get nailed. It's not quite an oval. It's kind of like a dog leg. And then 3 and 4 is kind of a wider set corner. So you got to be ready for both corners.
So maybe that's why they call it the world's toughest 3rd mile, I guess, eh?
Exactly.
Oh, well, that's all good information. Rob, do you have anything that you want to ask about that before we get going here?
Well, I understand we've got a couple of videos we're going to show of Tegan running around that track, and he talked about that dog leg sort of going into 1. I was really impressed with how he likes that high line and he uses that momentum. So I won't spoil it for those watching, but he's got a pretty good line around there. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tegan, why don't you take us back in time? We'll go right back to the beginning, I guess. Did you grow up around racing? Were you a racing fan? Did you have family in racing, or how did you get involved in the racing world?
My Uncle Bill has always raced. I have not been around racing a whole lot in my life. I went to the racetrack every once in a while with Mom and Dad. And just kind of hung around it. I've always been interested in cars. I've always had family members with cars. So I've always kind of been around that. And then Dad's owned a couple trucks. So I've always been working on vehicles with him and his buddies. And then I was like, hey, I want a race car. I'm finally old enough. I watched NASCAR my whole life. Might as well try it.
Yeah, absolutely. Who was your favorite NASCAR driver growing up?
When I was growing up, it was Jeff Gordon.
Oh, that's not a bad pick. Rob, how do you feel about that pick?
Well, I wasn't a Jeff Gordon fan, but he's a great racer, and it was great for a guy like you to look up to him. He's a really good racer. But I see in this picture that we're looking at here, that looks like Tegan's garage, so I guess that would be kind of hard to heat that thing. And looks like he's got that would probably be was that your first year you ran that Honda?
Yeah, that was. So the first picture in the middle there was the day that we brought it home, and then all the other pictures have been throughout the first year of just getting it built. The garage has changed a little bit since. You can see that the back garage there, that's a wooden garage. It had Dad's truck in it at this time. Now that is where the race car is, and the car tent has been moved to a different location.
I see. Yeah. So you say you brought that car home. So was it a race car to begin with, and you just built it from scratch?
Yeah, we built it completely. It was a bone stock car that we paid nothing for, basically. And it came with the motor in the hatch of it, everything dismantled. We stripped it down. We found a guy in Owen Sound with a roll cage, got it delivered, jammed a roll cage in it, had to cut the roof off of it and shrink the cage a little bit, make it fit. And it all fit after a little bit of remanufacturing and fabrication.
Well, looking at that car there and the finished product, I'll tell you, that's quite a feat. You did a fine job. But some of these pictures we have coming up will show everybody what the car looks like now. But that was the beginnings. Good for you. Back to you, Craig.
Yeah, so obviously you brought this thing home and you said you had to do a bunch of work to it. But I'm just curious because you weren't really involved in that racing growing up in racing that much growing up. You said, did you know what you were getting into when you bought this car, or were you kind of taking things apart and you're like, oh my god, I just opened a whole can of worms and now I'm kind of in this far and I got to keep going now.
Yeah, there's many points where I've stood there going, I don't even know what I just took apart and how it's going to go back together. I mean, luckily enough, it's a Honda, so it's pretty easy to kind of figure out, but it took a lot of trial and error and a lot of new parts and replacing the same parts.
Awesome, Rob. Do you have any questions about any of that?
Well, again, Tegan and I spoke about the suspension on that and how I was very curious about the independent rear suspension and how adjustable it was. I kind of in my mind, I'm thinking that wow, there's a lot you can do with the rear independent suspension as far as camber is concerned and whatnot that you can't do with a straight axle. And Tegan sounds like he's pretty technical from that standpoint. And maybe a little later on, we'll get him to tell us a little bit more about the chassis and some of the stuff he does to make it adjustable. He's also spoke about running the high line where nobody else likes to run the high line, like in a lot of asphalt tracks. And he's trying to make that car work there where the other guys aren't. And it seems to be working because the video shows him taking the high line. So we'll see that a little later.
All right, so this is you bought this car in 2022, is that right? Or maybe
Yep.
the winter of 2021 or whatever.
Yeah, it was the end of 2020, beginning of 21 was when we bought it.
Okay, and did you run 2021? Was that kind of your rookie season? Did you get out there a few times, or did you wait until the next season?
Yeah, we raced. I think we had a couple races in 2020 that was practice and one invitational, or it was 2021 that we had the invitationals and the full season. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So anyway, my point is, Tegan, what was that experience kind of like getting on the track for the first time, getting on the big track and racing around other cars? Can you kind of walk us through, are you feeling out the car and just making sure you're not drifting up into the wall, or are you just watching what's going on around you? You don't want to run into anybody else. You don't care if you smack the wall. Like, what's going through your mind as you're trying to figure everything out?
When I started, I wasn't a scared driver, but I just didn't want to mess anybody else up. I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything I was doing right and making sure that everybody that was experienced had no problems with what I was doing, because the last thing I want to be is a hazard. So I stayed low. I learned the car at a very slow pace because I wanted to know the car as well as I possibly could and be as comfortable as I could. So I took as long as I possibly could with it. I remember the first year my goal was to, stay on the lead lap. Yeah, I was a very cautious driver for the first year and a bit. It took me about a year and a half worth of racing before I was confident in my abilities and really started to push the car.
Okay. Rob, do you have any questions about any of that?
That's a good point there, Tegan. My daughter Angela, when she was starting racing, I said to her, the first thing you want to do is just finish. And sometimes people think, oh yeah, just finish. That's a very hard task. When you get out there, you want to finish, and then as you get a little bit more comfortable, you want to try and move up, but just finishing. And as you say, kind of staying out of everybody's way and feeling the car out. That's good, really good information. If anybody ever asks you, a younger person starting, let them know that you don't have to go out there and win, being a top 5 driver. Just finish first. And that reminds me of an old saying that a famous driver by the name of Dick Trickle said, to finish first, you must first finish. Mm-hmm. Anyway, back to you, Craig.
All right, so before we carry on too far here, I noticed there's a lot of 23s. Is there any significance behind the number 23?
When I was younger, I did a test in school, and I didn't want to actually pay attention to it So I just wrote 23 as all the answers, and I got like a 75 on it because that's just the coincidence. So ever since then, 23 has been my lucky number.
Oh, wow. So there is some truth to that then, because I've always been told on multiple choice tests, you're supposed to pick C if you don't know the answer, and it's going to be right the majority of the time. So there you go. 23, same thing, I guess. Rob, do you have any questions about any of that?
No, it must have been a mathematical question. I was actually pretty good in math, but yeah, that's a good story. But anyway, so I see that the car Tegan was red the first year. Any reason for any of that kind of stuff?
Our main sponsor is Northumberland County Moving, and their colors are red, white, and black. So the car came red. We painted it more like the red in the moving company. And then black hood, white roll cage, kept it simple, but it was all the company colors. So that's what we really wanted.
It looks like you even painted the 23 on there. That's pretty nostalgic from back in the day. Did you do all that yourself?
That is all stickers.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, we got somebody to do all of our vinyl, and then we just put it on in the garage with a heat gun and a credit card.
Well, that's pretty cool. All right.
All right, so you kind of work your way through. You're not really running a full season. You're kind of getting comfortable in the car, but either way, when you get to the end of the season, as is always the case with most of the drivers, but I'll ask you anyway. I assume though that you didn't get out of the car and go, never again. I don't like this racing thing. I'd rather have nothing to do with the racetrack ever again.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Yeah, you get hooked almost instantly.
As soon as you strap into the car, you're hooked, right?
Oh, yeah. I think the second that you realize that you're about to go drive a race car is when you're like, okay.
Yeah, but either way, you got through that kind of trial season, and you got things some things figured out. Kind of figured out how to get around the track, how to work on the car, make the car work, and make it last, and everything. So taking all that stuff that you learned from your first season, going back into the shop that you had there that we saw earlier, and really time to get to work. Walk us through kind of prepping for your next season and how you're kind of go about the off season, your first off season.
So my off-season prep right now is working on the next upgrade for the next season. So we're going up a class as well as running bone stock full time. So right now I'm trying to make the mini stock into a fully functioning race car. Rhonda is a very well-maintained car and has never really gave us a problem. So she's pretty well ready to race again. It got well abused at Autumn Colors, so it needs 4 tires, a couple suspension pieces, and a front end put on it. But other than that, I have very little prep to get going. I have some advanced things that I want to look into getting into on Rhonda, but it's just where I want to stop and how far I am willing to go with said upgrades. She's pretty fast and doesn't like when I change a lot at one time, so I try not to.
Okay, so and since you mentioned it, Tegan, you said you're going up to a mini stock or possibly a mini stock. Can you kind of walk us through, in layman's terms, the difference between a bone stock and a mini stock?
So in the Peterborough rules, a bone stock, the only modifications that you're allowed are cut springs, whereas in a mini stock you're allowed fully adjustable suspension. I think you're allowed like unlimited camber. Tow is optional to you. You're allowed rear steer, aftermarket bushings, aftermarket mounts. You're allowed upgraded motors. Like we can go from a single cam motor to a dual cam motor. Weights are different. The roll cage is significantly different. You're allowed to tie the front and the rear end in. You're a fuel cell. You're allowed fully adjustable suspension components top to bottom. I think you're allowed aftermarket gears for the transmission. If not, you do anyways. It's just overall more of a modified class compared to bone stock. Bone stock needs to stay relatively street legal. For the most part, you're supposed to be running stock exhaust, stock suspension components, stock engine components, basically as you would on the street with cut springs.
Okay. Rob, do you have any questions about any of that?
Well, because Tegan mentioned that he named his car Rhonda the Honda, or I wonder where that all came from. Fill us in on that, Tegan.
Rhonda just came from is a red Honda Civic, and that was easy. When I picked up the keychain, it had the dealership key, and it just said R Honda, and I said, "Cool, your name's Rhonda."
That's good. Now you also mentioned something about Wanda. Now that's the next one. Is that you said this is the bone stock. Is it what was it, a mini stock you're going to now?
Yeah, it's this is a Rhonda is a 98 Honda Civic hatchback, whereas the mini stock's a 94 hatchback. So it's the older sister, and it's just going to go white as of right now. So we named it Wanda.
Well, that's pretty good. Anyway, back to you, Craig.
All right, so we just want to talk about some of your racing accomplishments. I guess we were talking a little bit earlier, but for you to tell the audience watching, your 2023 season, last season, I guess, you finished third in points. Why don't you kind of walk us through your season? I know that we have a video here, so as you're kind of talking here, if we get an opportunity, we can try to throw some videos up. But why don't you talk about how your 2023 season was, and finishing third in the points?
So the start of the season was kind of a slow start. We just were going out to feel the car. It had brand new paint on it. So we were expecting to try this year. We were going to see how far we could make it. We wanted to be as competitive as possible in 2023. So we started to really focus on the car and how the car was handling. It went under extensive trial and error testing, went through a bunch of different suspension components and whatnot, and trying it out. We ended up picking up a bunch of speed. The car ended up getting significantly faster. We went from running, fifth to third on a good night to running third to first on a good night. We won a lot of heat races this year. It was a very successful year. We won our first feature. The car started to feel amazing going towards the end of the year. Started to really figure out what the car wants from me as a driver and how I can adjust the car to what I want as a driver without having to suffer speed or handling.
And you figured, you obviously learned a lot, and you have a mechanical background, which we'll talk about later. But you figured out quite a bit of stuff to get that car around the track, and we're pretty successful over the course of the season. Wouldn't you agree, Tegan?
Yes, absolutely. Okay,
Rob, do you have any questions about that?
Well, also when we were talking earlier, Tegan said he was his first year. He was rookie of the year. And he's finished sixth and a couple of thirds in the last couple of years. That's pretty good. You finishing in the top five like that overall. That's fantastic. And also he's talking about how he wanted to figure out what he could do to make the car better, or what the car wanted. That's information you usually get from a veteran driver. Somebody's got quite a few years of seat time. The fact that you mentioned that you know that's in just a couple of years, that's really good stuff to sit there in the race car and think, okay, well, if I do this or that, or that's what this might need. Is that kind of where you're going with this? Is if you're driving it, you think, man, this is what I should do, and do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that the car is the biggest variable when it comes to like how it's going to handle. So when I'm racing and the car doesn't feel right, I try to find why it doesn't feel right and where it doesn't feel right, so that when I come off, if I can't figure it out in the car, I could figure it out on paper and try it. I adjust my line a lot. I'll either let off earlier or I won't let off until it's too late, depending on if it's pushing or if it doesn't want to stick. Sometimes it's too loose. I personally believe that I can drive a too loose car, but I cannot drive a pushing car. If it pushes like a dump truck, it is the most frustrating thing to drive. Whereas if it's too loose, I'm okay with it because I like to be scared. But it won't ever kick out on me. It's a really hard car to spin. I try often.
Well, that's good. That if as hard as you go, it won't spin out. That's good. But we're just watching you maneuver through traffic here, and I can tell that you're using that momentum to your advantage. The traffic's not slowing you down. As I said earlier, you're using that high line and making that work. So I'm just this is really good video. I like the way that you're driving that car.
Yeah, this is a good representation of like the over under. I use it quite often. It's a trick that you see a lot, and if you can perfect it, it is amazing. Right, like the bottom line is most of the time the fastest line on the track. So if you can get it, you're pretty content where you are. And I've got a lot of people, giving me advice on how to do it. So I took it all and kind of made my own perception on how to do it. And so far it works amazing. I can do it a lot. I can predict a little bit better than I would say some people could. I mean, Rhonda likes them. She really likes running awkward lines compared to your standard line. So when you back it up kind of in an awkward way, it somehow goes through the corner like a rocket ship.
Yeah, and again, for a guy you're as young as you are, an old rule for a lot of veterans will tell you that you never want to pass going into a turn. You can set somebody up, but you always want to make your pass coming out of a turn or down the straightaway. And I just watched you come through there, and I'll tell you, you're doing exactly the right thing.
All that matters is where you leave, because you can get them in the middle of the corner, but if you have to brake, you're losing the speed. So as long as they carry their speed, you won't have it. Whereas it's all out of the corner.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, you're doing a good job. Okay.
Tegan, how many cars are you racing against in your class on a given night?
Between heats, I think it's about 8 to 10 cars, and then in a feature, it's about 12 to about 20 on a good night.
And you're finishing in the top 5 the majority of that time, right?
Yeah, I don't think we had any race that I did not finish in top 5 this year.
Like that's absolutely impressive, because you haven't been racing that long, and then you're having some solid finishes, and like I said earlier, finishing third in points. Like that's pretty impressive. How do you figure that you kind of have all this like almost natural ability to kind of get this thing around that racetrack?
It feels amazing. Like I say I'm gifted, and Rhonda, like really, she's the one that's doing all the work. I don't know how to explain it. Like I don't know really what I'm doing. I'm just trying things, and she either takes it and runs with it or tells me absolutely not, I won't have it. And it's just always been good. I find everything that I do to it, she enjoys. And a lot of the stuff I do, other people say I shouldn't do, but I just keep trying things, because if you're not trying something new, there's a really high chance that you could be missing the secret step.
Now we have this other video up here, and you are rolling around on the outside of that track. And I mean, like we kind of got some bullring go-kart racing around here, and also Delaware racetrack as well. And they all kind of race single groove. not many people go out to the outside like that. What does it take? I mean, what does it take for you to go out there and make that thing hook up and make it go around the track and make passes?
So it honestly, it just depends. Like, in this case, this video, I remember just sitting there going, okay, well, am I happy with a third place? You know, these guys aren't moving off the bottom line. Nobody's making any kind of moves, so we're stuck in this endless loop. This is how the race is going to finish unless somebody makes a difference. So I said, I'll make the difference. I would rather a 5th place and say I tried for first than a 3rd place saying I could have. So I just went out there and it stuck. I remember this race vividly because I was so bored in the car going, let's see what we can make happen, and throwing it out there, and it stuck. And I went, okay, let's go.
Rob, do you have any questions about any of that? Because that's just wild. Right?
Well, that's a lot of that. Tegan may not know it, but that's momentum. When you can run out there, and especially in that lane, there's nobody in his way, momentum will carry you through. Once you get that speed up, the guys on the inside, they're braking to get themselves set up for the turn, and it's just all it is just a freight train down there. He's got his own lane, but once you understand that how much momentum means, whether you're on the dirt or the asphalt, every time you brake, you take away momentum. Every time you turn the wheel, you take away that momentum. That momentum can win you a lot of races. But I see that one question I want to ask him is parents. I think they probably have a lot of influence or a lot of help. His mom and his dad. Is that true, Tegan?
Absolutely. Dad helps me with the car as much as he possibly can, and mom is the emotional support and the planner. So mom makes sure that nobody's freaking out and stressing out, and everything's in a line. She makes sure that we know what we got to do and what times we have to do it, and then Dad's just there to help me do it.
Well, that's good to know. I'm always glad to hear that a family supports their kids in racing, and that can go a long way, I'll tell you. Anyway, back to you, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2024 season, as we're just kind of watching this video come to an end, 2024 season, you had a pretty successful 2023 season. Now we're talking about last season. You finished 3rd in the points again, Tegan. Why don't you kind of walk us through your last season?
So this season we were very dominant with the racing. I was going for a championship. Unfortunately, there were 2 nights where we lost points. So we ended up finishing 3rd in points. We won a lot of heat races. We were a very dominant car up at the front of the pack, doing a lot of pushing, very aggressive, very upfront. And I had a lot of fun this year. It was a lot more aggressive with the other vehicles around us, which I really like. I am a very big fan of close racing. It's all I like to do personally. But other people don't like rubbing, and wrecking things.
Absolutely. At this point, we just want to step aside here for a second. Tegan, we just want to have a quick word from our sponsor. When we come back, we'll talk to you about your 2024 season a little bit more, and then we want to get to know you a little bit more personally. So we're just going to step aside here for about 30 seconds, and we'll be right back right after this message from our sponsor.
Awesome.
All right, so thank you very much to Dupuy Media Productions for helping us out on Circle Track Chatter. We're back talking to Tegan Stanley, driver of the number 23 Bone Stock, third place finisher in the 2024 points run at Peterborough Speedway. We were just talking a little bit about the overview of your 2024 season. Rob, do you have any questions or anything you want to talk to Tegan about any of that?
No, other than I've often watched these cars at a number of different tracks, and they really put on a good show. I'll tell you, he's talking about how he likes the tight and sort of bumper to bumper racing. Man, when you get a pack of these guys going, they're extremely exciting to watch. I can only imagine what it's like to drive them, but maybe and I know that Tegan is kind of stepping up to another class here, but and they're equally as exciting to watch. But I think that I just think they're a pretty cool car and maybe a good car to. Some people say they're not really a race car, but I think they are absolutely. Good car to learn on. Good stepping stone. I don't know if Tegan ever raced any go-karts before, but those would be a good stepping stone from a go-kart up to. But have you raced any go-karts before, Tegan?
Recently, I've been going up to Volt Raceway on Thursdays with my family, but I never raced or driven any sort of vehicle before I started racing.
Well, there you go. I mean, there's nothing wrong with starting out there, that's for sure. Back to you, Craig.
All right, so while we're kind of watching this video come to an end, we want to get to know you just a little bit more personally, Tegan. So why don't you kind of tell us where you're from and what you do for a living, if you have a job and that sort of thing. What's going on there at home?
So I live in Peterborough. I'm very close to the Speedway, which is awesome. It's about a 15-minute drive. I work full-time. I'm a collision repair tech. I'm apprentice for a prepper and a painter. So I'm under 2 apprentices right now, and that's what I do full-time during the week.
All right, and as far as sports or anything goes, though, I got to ask, are you a Peterborough Petes fan? Are you a hockey fan at all?
I'm not a hockey fan, but I am a Peterborough Petes fan. I like to support local. I've been to a handful of Pete's games in my day, but I don't really watch a whole lot of sports. I'm more of a music kind of guy, so I just kind of listen to music.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool. I mean, you guys are pretty fortunate. Peterborough Peach, you got one of our hometown boys up there who got drafted, Brady Stonehouse. He's playing for those guys, so he's been drafted to the Edmonton Oilers. But anyway, we're not here to talk about hockey. What are some of your interests? I know you said you're kind of racing, but outside of racing, what are you kind of doing for fun at home, Tegan?
So when I get home, I like to just kind of hang out. I go to the gym. And then I just listen to music, kind of figure out what I'm going to do tomorrow, plan out my day. I build models every once in a while and just kind of work on the vehicles is kind of all I do. Between the street car, the 2 race cars, it's just sleep, eat, work, music, and race cars.
And pay taxes, right?
And pay taxes, of course.
Rob, do you have any questions about any of that?
Well, Tegan indicated he works for a body shop, but when he and I were chatting, he said he'd eventually like to be a diesel mechanic. And we're kind of just talking about like heavy equipment or not. Now, does your dad drive a semi?
No, my dad is he works for a moving company.
Okay. And because you mentioned he had a truck, so it's more like 4x4 type stuff.
Yeah, he's got a 98 Chevy pickup. He hauls the race car with it. And then he's got a 1967 GMC C10 that we're restoring.
Well, that's a nice truck. So anyway, you want to be like to be a diesel mechanic at some point. So are you thinking more diesel mechanic for regular passenger vehicles, trucks, or heavy equipment?
I was going for transport. I wanted to go get my 310T. If I'm going to put myself into college, I wanted something that was going to be significant, make good money, and long term. And I feel that if I was going to put myself into anything, the money is going to be in diesel mechanics.
Yeah, and you also indicated that maybe like transit buses and stuff like that, that would be a good place for you to go and work at.
Yeah.
Good for you, because that's, that's a skilled trade and commands a good wage. So that your mind and your thoughts are in the right direction. Get into something like that. But anyway, back to you, Craig.
All right. Well, that's all good information. That's all really good to know. I kind of mentioned before we brought you on screen that we had an opportunity, myself and Angela and my wife and her husband, we had an opportunity to come down and see you guys in Peterborough. And I don't mind telling fans that you're a heck of a guy. You're a heck of a nice guy, and you got a nice family there, and you guys are kind of enjoying. You guys are having a real good time there in the pits, and just taking the best the racing life has to offer. Wouldn't you agree with that, Tegan?
Absolutely.
And we're going to definitely make plans. We're going to try and make plans to come and see you this coming racing season in Peterborough. Maybe not be a weekly thing or anything, but we're definitely want to take a chance to come down and have a chat with you guys and catch up and watch some of your racing.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely. But looking ahead, 2025 season, are you going to be sticking around in the bone stock? Or I know you mentioned earlier that you're moving up to a mini stock, but are we still going to find you at Peterborough Speedway, or are you thinking about doing some traveling?
So I've thought about doing traveling. Unfortunately, the rule package for bone stock is so different that it's hard to travel. So I probably won't be traveling with the bone stock as much as I want to. I have been thinking very hard last year about taking a couple trips up to Sunset and Flamborough with the bone stock. This year, having the mini stock possibly coming out, I plan to do some traveling with it as the rule package is a lot tighter. So I imagine Rhonda is going to end up going to be our test dummy at a couple of tracks and seeing kind of what I can get into.
Okay. And Tegan, if money was no object, you could go anywhere. You could go where and do anything, race anywhere, any track. What's the dream track, the dream race, the dream car? What's the dream for you, Tegan?
So my all-time favorite track ever is Tsukuba Circuit up in Japan. So if I had a choice, I would get as many people as I could fit on the track, and we would all have a different set of vehicles. I personally would want a Honda Civic just because I love them so much. I know everybody hates on the Hondas, but I'm a big fan. I would love a fully built Honda, the most amount of aero you could possibly get, like some outrageous stuff. See how fast I could make a little Honda go around Tsukuba Circuit.
Absolutely. And if you're sticking a little bit closer to home, what would you say the end game is for you? Maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, would you want to get into a super stock or a late model? Would you want to try some dirt racing? What's the future looking like for you, Tegan?
So I haven't put a whole lot of thought into the future. I've always thought that late models have been super cool, but I know that they're really expensive, and I personally don't have that kind of budget. Maybe if I land a really good job or win a lottery ticket, maybe something like that, and then I'll get a late model. But, as of right now, I think I hope to be racing in 10 to 15 years. Hopefully I've got a lot of trophies behind me in 10 to 15 years, though.
Awesome. Rob, do you have any questions about any of that?
Well, you also, earlier when we were talking, you mentioned that the Legends cars run at Peterborough. I think probably 7, maybe 10 times, maybe more. I'm not sure, but I think you've got about 7 different divisions at that track. So you're in the bone stock, and then you got the mini stock. Tell us a little bit about the other divisions.
So there's the super stocks, which, I'm not very educated on the super stocks. As far as I'm aware, it's a tube chassis crate motor. It's your Monte Carlos, kind of your older stock. And then we get late models, which are advanced, fully built chassis, big crate motors, the whole nines. Then we also have the little cars, which are the junior late models. And I don't think, we have the Bandoleros actually coming to us this year. That's going to be a brand new class. And yeah, I think that's all of our regular nights.
So you alternate. You were mentioning to me that you usually get one night a month off. I like that idea. It gives you you race 3 weeks in a row, and get a week off. That's what you do at that track.
Yeah, I personally don't like it. I wish he would just say, May 2-4 Saturday until Autumn Colors is go time, but that can't happen, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
Hopefully with this year having 2 vehicles, there will never be a night that I will not be at the racetrack.
Well, good for you. Well, it seems like for a 19-year-old, you've done a lot of racing, and I can tell just by watching that you're really applying yourself. Good for you. I've got a lot of years ahead of you. Most guys can race till they're about 35 and do well. After that, they start falling off. So you still got quite a few years to go. Anyway, back to you, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tegan, whether it's a late model or it's a mini stock or a bone stock, it takes a ton to get these cars to and on the track. Who's helping you out on the car?
So the biggest supporters are obviously the sponsors. Dad drives the truck and trailer every night to the racetrack. All I got to do is make sure that their gas goes into the race car and into the truck. When he isn't there, normally it's Maddie, who is our secondary sponsor, Roofing MD. He'll come and pull the trailer for us. He's gave us lots of help. R&J Tire, they're amazing when it comes to the tires on the car. They gave us a brand new set of tires that nobody's ever ran. Found out that they work really, really well. Jiffy Lube, KD Contracting, they've helped out a lot when it comes to fluid changes and just maintaining the car overall. TMC Motorsports and Strawn Co., Corey and Tyler both have been the biggest help when it comes to the setup of the car. Whenever I need an extra hand or an opinion on what I should do, they're normally the first people I contact and the first to answer. Smooth Coats and Pizza Hut are brand new to this year. Pizza Hut made sure that we didn't go hungry. They supplied pizza every weekend for the crew and whoever else was around us. Smooth Coats is brand new to us as of a few races at the end of the year, and Autumn Colors, they'll be on board with us in the 2025 season. They're so far been pretty good. We've got a couple, fancy shiny parts coming out of their shop here soon for the race cars, which I'm really pumped for.
Awesome. Well, that's all amazing stuff. And thank you as always to your sponsors and all the sponsors at Peterborough Speedway and all the racetracks around the province here. We just we want to support the people that are supporting racing. So any of those sponsors, if you need a pizza and you're in the Peterborough area, head over to Pizza Hut and mention Tegan Stanley, and maybe they'll throw it on Tegan's bill for you. How's that sound, Tegan?
Maybe.
I don't have any more questions for you, but I do really appreciate you taking some time to join us. Rob, do you have anything else for Tegan before we let him off the hook here?
Nope, Tegan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's nice to, again, talk to the younger guys, learn a little bit more about the Hondas and stuff like that. I think they're a very interesting little race car. So looks like they're pretty technical and a lot of adjustment, even though you're limited. But yeah, you're coming a long way. Good for you.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're mentioning it, Peterborough Speedway, if you get a chance, go down there, check out Tegan Stanley and some of the classes they got going on down there. They do a heck of a job. As I said earlier, we've been down there. They do a heck of a job, get the show going. And it's really, it's about a 5-hour drive, I think, or something like that. So if you want to take a really long road trip, go down to Peterborough Speedway from our area. And they do a heck of a job, put on some good racing, tight racing, and you might even see a car pass on the outside.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Tegan, and we wish you the best of luck in the 2025 season at Peterborough Speedway. And we thank you very much for joining us on Circle Track Chatter tonight.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
Okay, take care, Tegan.
Thanks, Tegan. Well, there you go, Rob. We know a little bit more about the driver of the number 23 bone stock at Peterborough Speedway, Tegan Stanley. As I said at the beginning, he's a heck of a nice young man, and we just had a great conversation. What do you think of all that, Rob?
Oh, it is really nice to talk to somebody who's just like all in racing. You can tell he just loves it, and can't wait to get back to the track. And it's just nice to see.
Yep, absolutely. He's such a nice young man, and it's so nice to see.
Are you breaking up on me there, Craig?
Oh, there we go. I'm not too exactly sure what happened there, but all I wanted to do is I just wanted to mention really quickly that Buxton Speedway, they have their Enduro Blizzard coming up. So February 22nd, 2024, if you're interested in running a Buxton Enduro or a winter Enduro race, Buxton Speedway is going to have that, as I said, on February 22nd. So make sure you're checking out the Facebook page on Buxton Speedway. And they'll have all that information if you want to register your car or whatever. Other than that, I don't think we have anything else coming up. I mean, I know we have this season coming up very soon. That's good. They're going to be getting all the racetracks ready and race cars ready. So that's all good stuff. What do you think of all that, Rob?
Well, yeah, it's been really cold, and we still got a couple weeks to go and get through this cold snap, and then we can start thinking a little bit more about racing. But yeah, the endurance race will be a cool thing. You get all bundled up and get lots of hot chocolate and go out and watch some cars go around.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I'm gonna take this opportunity. I'll just sell it a little bit. You and I and Angela and the rest of the crowd, we kind of went for a Buxton or a enduro race at Buxton Speedway. It was Southern Ontario Motor Speedway at the time. It wasn't too bad. I mean, it was really cold the day of, but there was no wind. The sun was shining, but it wasn't really that bad. We kind of had a pretty good time. We really did enjoy it. So, I mean, if you're sitting at home and you got the winter blues and, the racing blues and you want something to do, check out the Buxton Blizzard. It's the enduro race on February 22nd, and check that out. Because like I said, Rob, I mean, you were there. We had a few problems. I mean, you're always going to have that. But it wasn't that bad. It really was actually a good time for what it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was cool to see who showed up. I mean, you had some regular guys that jumped in cars and went out there, and then there were some guys that do this. I'm going to say professionally, because you could tell, like their cars were all set up for an enduro race, and yeah, it was a good mix and lots of crashes and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun.
It was pretty entertaining. Yeah, I mean, we had drivers sitting on the front stretch, just stopped there, and they said, "I'm just going to sit here. They can race around me, I guess." So, yeah, that was all good stuff. So, yeah, if you're looking at some entertaining stuff, check out the Buxton Blizzard. February 10th, we're going to be joined by a local driver. We're going to be talking to the driver of the 22S. He pretty much drives everything, but he's also run a 22S late model, and then he's also racing the Ontario Traditional Sprints in their limited schedule. We're going to be talking to Brian Spielman. What's your opening thoughts on Brian Spielman, Rob?
Hey, he's a very good racer. Does most everything himself. His dad helps him out there, but yeah, he's run a number of different tracks. He's always competitive when he runs. I ran a modified very successfully there for quite a while, and his late model. Yeah, he's a good racer, so good guy to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian's a pretty nice guy, and he's a racer. Like you said, he kind of has raced everything, and he races everything. So we're going to talk to Brian Spielman. That'll be on Monday, February 10th, live at 7:00 p.m. So make sure you're checking that out. For the legendary Rob Young and Angela Young-Bonner, my name is Craig Smolders. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on Circle Track Chatter, presented by Dupuis Media Productions. We will talk to you on Monday, February 10th with Brian Spielman. Thank you and have a great